A very good morning to everyone. I, Priyanka Jain, on behalf of SEF CRNTS IIT Bombay, take this opportunity to welcome you all to today's webinar on high resolution liquid chromatography quadruple time of flight, titled LC-QTOF technology and its applications in metabolomics. At the outset, I will provide overview of SEF, brief introduction of today's speaker, Dr. Ashish Pargankar, followed by his presentation on the topic, and at the last question and answer section. I request everyone to post their questions with their name in question and answers box, which will be answered towards end of the section. Sophisticated Analytical Instrument Facilities, also known as SEF, was inaugurated by our late ex-Prime Minister Sri Morarji Desai in 1976. Project CRNTS was also started in 2006 with initial funding from DST. In 2008, SEF and CRNTS got merged under one umbrella headed by one in charge. Professor Anil Kotantharil is currently heading our SEF CRNTS department at IIT Bombay. 16 major equipment under SEF and 5 under CRNTS. CRNTS, being academic wing, also has PhD programs, 80 plus students guided by around 65 faculty members of other departments. During the financial year 1920, more than 25,000 samples have been analyzed and about 2,700 users were found. The Department of Science and Technology has set up sophisticated analytical instrument facilities in different parts of India. The main objective of setting up these facilities were to provide guidance in acquisition of data using sophisticated instruments. SEF at IIT Bombay has several analytical instruments and provides measurement services to IIT Bombay users and to users from other colleges, universities, national laboratories, and various industries as well. DST has provided funds for following instruments, out of which 3 liquid chromatography mass spectrometers have been highlighted. Out of these 3, 2 of them are high resolution mass spectrometer, QTOF and Orbitrap. These are the instruments which come under the central facility funded by IIT Bombay. Dr. Mayuri Gandhi is in charge of all mass spectrometry in-house at SEF CRNTS. To know more detail about SEF CRNTS, please visit our website cef.iitb.ac.in. It gives me a great pleasure to inform that in spite of 17 SEF funded by DST, we have users and researchers coming to our SEF from different parts of India and Nepal. SEF is not just the center for research, but we also encourage people to visit our center to help them understand and to demonstrate how our facility works. We encourage visitors from industries and universities as well. We also have a YouTube channel where you can find the videos of our previous webinars. We also have a LinkedIn page of SEF at IIT Bombay, and we will be happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. I once again take this opportunity of thanking everyone for joining today's webinar. All our team members will be happy to welcome you to SEF CRNTS and help you with your research and development work. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome Dr. Ashish Pargankar. Dr. Ashish Pargankar is a manager for Center of Excellences at Bangalore and Mumbai. A microbiologist by education with a PhD, he holds more than 19 years of experience for biopharma market applications on high-resolution mass spectrometry. He has a long record of successful demonstrations and customer engagements on workflows, metabolomics, proteomics, and biopharma on Agilent state-of-the-art solutions. He has authored as American Society for Mass Spectrometry Reboot 2020 posters on media components and therapeutic peptides. Dr. Ashish has been invited speaker at several conferences and workshops at Biosimilar Congress, ADC 2018, IIT Mumbai, IIT Delhi, ICT Mumbai, and has Proteomics Society India events. Now I take this opportunity of requesting Dr. Ashish Pargankar to present his slides to everyone. Over to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So I am Ashish Pargankar, as you know me now, and I'll take you through today a brief introduction of LCMS as a technology in general. So, and specifically on QTOF, the quadrupole time of flight, what exactly that means, what is the technology, the basics of that, how it works, what are the functionalities, what are the different applications it can do, and a brief example of a metabolite identification, and while showing its strengths, what we talk about the technology of a QTOF. So to start with, it's a basic question, or I would say basic statement. What exactly is a mass spectrometer? It might be, I'm not sure about the audience here. Maybe some few of you might be knowing it, but few of you might be very new to this. So I thought, like, let me connect it in a way that it can be refresher for someone who already know it, and something it's a new information for someone who do not know it yet. So if I have split this aspect into two parts, mass and spectrum. So the mass is the mass of the molecule or the compound, whatever it is we call it. So it gives us mass spectrometer gives us two things basically, a mass and the spectrum. So when we say mass, it means it has a component of accuracy, sensitivity as well as precision, because it is very, very precise to what we are talking about in terms of the mass of that molecule or compound. When we say spectrum, means it's an output, or I would say the readout of a mass spectrum in the form of the way we see it, visualize it in the form of spectrum, which gives us versatility, reproducibility and flexibility, because this is something the information which we try to club together to see it in the mass spectrometer, that a mass and the spectrum of that mass, how exactly it looks like when we see it into the mass spectrometer. So that's how, if you can split it in very basic way. And it's a quite old technique now, and there are various ways to different types of mass spectrometer available in the field now. And just to give you a glimpse of few of them, the basic one, which we can call it as a quadrupole analyzer. So quadrupole analyzer, also called as in terms of routine mass, routine MS parlance, or I would say the people who works in the mass spectrometry field, they call it as a Q in short form, quadrupole analyzer. So quadrupole analyzer is basically a mass filter. We also call it as a mass filter. As the name suggests, quadrupole means there are 4 rods, quadrupole. So quadrupole, 4 rods, wherein the mass, you can filter the mass or the mass to charge in terms of mass spec, the ion of the mass in terms of the different varying RF and DC voltages in systematic way, of course. So the advantage of mass filter or mass quadrupole type of mass analyzer, which can filter the mass, means it can give you absolute specificity and sensitivity. That's an advantage of a quadrupole. However, it can give you only the mass information. It has a unit mass accuracy. When I say unit mass accuracy, I will explain you in next coming slide what exactly when we say means, what we mean by when we say accuracy. Okay. And it won't give a structural information. It will give you just mass information. That's it. Why it's not giving structural information? Because it's just filtering one mass. It has no capability of its own to fragment it further. Okay, and that's why it won't give you a structural information, but it will give you the mass information. It is very good analyzer, I would say, a good technology for characterization of known compounds. Why so? Because you ask for it, it will give you that mass. So it's that specific as that. So that's why it also sometimes concluded that it has 3 S's basically: specificity, sensitivity, and selectivity. So that's how it can run this quadrupole. Then there is another analyzer which we will be explaining today in today's talk much more in detail, which is also called as time of flight analyzer or TOF. Okay, so the difference between quadrupole and TOF is, the TOF is a scanning analyzer. It will be scanning all the time with high scan speeds. So the capacity of this analyzer is very high scan speeds. It can scan in very large number of masses at a time with high resolution and high mass accuracy. These two are the strengths, or I would say these two are the characteristics of time of flight type of analyzers. High mass resolution and mass accuracy. That's why in sometimes you might have heard that a term is also associated to time of flight is HRMS. HR means high resolution. So it has the capacity to give you high resolution. So these two terms I will explain you in more detail: mass accuracy and high resolution, what it means, resolution and accuracy. Okay. The third type of analyzer is also called as ion trap type of analyzer, wherein as the name suggests, again, it's a trap. So you trap an ion and then you do multiple experiments within that, either fragmentation or scanning multiple times. All those things can be done. or scanning at different collision energies for the same molecules. All those things can be done while the molecules are trapped in that chamber, let's say. So there are advantages for ion trap is that it can do MSN, so it can fragment multiple times the same molecule. That's possible because the mass of ions are trapped already. However, it has some limitations sometimes, that the accuracy might be low because of the way it handles. And then there are other types of analyzers also, which are again HRMS kind of analyzers, which is ion cyclotron, FTICRs, or magnetic sectors. So they are another level of I would say analyzers which can be used. So if you have noticed my first slide, introduction slide, where the topic slide rather, I mentioned about QTOF, but there is nothing QTOF here. So why so? There is a quadrupole separate and time of flight separate. So that's why there is a technology called, when we also called as tandem mass analyzer, meaning you can put two mass analyzers together to make it in a form of tandem tandem mass analyzer. Why we say tandem? Because when we say QTOF means a quadrupole is attached to a time of flight. When you attach two different analyzers to each other, it becomes tandem. And when we say tandem means they work together in sync. So quadrupole has its strength, as you know, it has a very high specificity, selectivity, sensitivity. Time of flight will have both good high resolution and mass accuracy. And when they both come together, and with the capability of a collision induced dissociation or a collision cell or the fragmentation, I would say in that sense, you have a better information coming out from your samples. Meaning you can select some ion, you can fragment that, and then you can have a accurate mass and high resolution of information from the same molecule as well as its fragments. So when you make a tandem in space, that's why the QTOF or another type of tandem mass analyzer is triple quad, you might have heard. So there are different quadrupole coupled with the collision cell. So that's also called as triple quadrupole. And time QTOF is whenever these two mass analyzers are combined in space, where they are separated in space, and you can perform multiple experiments of, or you can handle the ions in multiple ways. It is also called as tandem in space type of analyzers, the triple quadrupoles or QTOF. Whereas in trapped system, where you trap the ion, and in that time itself, you are running multiple experiments. They are also known as tandem in time. So that type of mass analyzers are available. So today we'll be talking more on a tandem mass analysis, of course, tandem MSMS, where you can have a possibility of fragmenting an ion and then getting into the structural information as well as identification of unknowns also possible. So that's all. It's all about quadrupole time of flight analyzer. So why we should use QTOF or quadrupole time of flight? So as I told you, like there are two reasons why we use it, why we choose this out of. Now the question comes, like out of these 3-4 types of analyzer, which analyzer I should use? What is the purpose I should use QTOF and not a triple quad? So here comes the answers for that. So what type of question you are asking for your experiment, what type of information you need from your samples or your experiments or your study will decide what type of analyzer you would need. For example, if you want to have a instrument for specifically, let's say, why we need a QTOF, LC QTOF, to identify compounds with strongest confidence. Meaning, the question is like, how confidently can I use this wheat to make baby food? Meaning, all the components which is required to make a baby food, let's say, from this wheat is really available or not? So it's not just a question whether it is there. You want to confirm, yes, it is there, then only I can go ahead. So that level of information and confirmation with confidence, meaning the results coming from the QTOF with that accuracy and resolution, no questions asked. It has to be that compound. It is to the level of that confidence. It gives you that information. Why so? Because of accurate mass, isotopic distribution, even MSMS with high resolution, and detention time, everything pulled together. And in fact, even in some kind of QTOF where you have ion mobility separation, you can have a collision cross-sectional values also to corroborate whatever we are trying to see. So you get excellent isotopic fidelity as well as mass accuracy with high resolution. That gives you confidence. And then it helps us to identify with confidence what is the compound. And with the example, you can see it much better way what I mean to say here. The next question can be, it can be a very complex mixture. Let's say cellular digest or biological fluids, environmental samples, protein digest, etc. All kinds of complex stuff where there is a lot of information available in the sample, and you want to pull out or dig out something which is useful for you. Something which is not useful for you, it's their information, but you can always choose and pick and choose with the, let's say, informatics tools available right now, what is relevant for us. The good part about the LC/QTOF, it's, as I told you, it's a scanning instrument. It has no bias of its own. It doesn't recognize what is useful for you, it is what is not useful for you. It will scan everything and give it to you. Unlike Quadrupole, if you ask Quadrupole that look for me glucose or some lipids, etc., some mass numbers, it will only target that. Even though something else is there, it will not show you. Unlike QTOF, it will scan everything, give it to you. Now you take care of what you want from the data. So that's important. That's important. And in such situations where it is unknown and where you want to scout everything available in your sample, it is very important that you must have all the information available with you first place, so that it can give you. So you can have a complete total ion chromatogram with all the information. You have a complex spectra, and those complex spectra can be well resolved. That's why the importance of high resolution. When there are multiple compounds coming at a time, eluting at a time, you must have a capacity of the instruments itself to resolve them, to separate them and see that it is not one peak. There are 100 compounds or 100 masses available in that. The next step comes, of course, what are those 100 masses means, so that and the quality of information you have already acquired, the information in terms of mass accuracy because of the time of flight, you can identify those 100. So that's an advantage of having such instruments. So that's another question you can ask to the LC/QTOF. Another question which might be you might be using, most of the people are using unknowns, meaning I want to screen hundreds of compounds to see, like let's say metabolomics or proteomics or maybe environmental screening, what type of pesticides are available, all those things. So question here is, I don't know what is there in my sample. And if I choose a technique and inject that sample, and the answer from the technique also comes that even I don't know, that doesn't make sense, isn't it? So for that reason, to get some answer from the technique where it says that yes, I know and this is what it is the technique which is called as QTOF, or a time of flight. Why so, and what type of information? So I inject my sample which is unknown to me right now. I want to know what exactly it is. I inject that sample, and the information coming from a time of flight type of instrument or a QTOF type of instrument is accurate mass. That is something, a next level information which I did not know until I injected that. So once I get that information, there are various ways to interpret that data and get information confidently while using database search or generating formulas because of mass accuracy and many other things, MSMS and structural elucidation, all those things we can do based on that basic information which we were lacking when we injected the sample. So that's the difference, and I'll explain you when I show you the data. Another thing which is possible because of high resolution capacity of such instruments is you can analyze large proteins in its native states as well as denatured states. Anything is possible in this case. We have many our own experiences as well as application notes, published information already available on very large molecules, even kinds of aggregates also we could able to do it. Why so? Because such a large molecule, let's say, for example, if monoclonal antibody itself we take, which is the biotherapeutic, and with COVID, you know, like neutralizing antibodies are a kind of vaccine treatments people are working on, scientists. So they are all MABs or combination of MABs, something like that, right? So MABs, one MAB itself is close to 150,000 Daltons. So it's a huge protein, larger one. And if you consider any kind of paracetamol or anyone which is just a very small molecule, compared to that, it is really large molecule. So just to give you that interpretation, it's just a spike here, a small molecule acetaminophen drug in compared to such a big molecule. So it's invisible, in fact, in that form. But with this high resolution, we could able to get a complete deconvolution or charged envelope of this multiple charge species. As we know that electrospray ionization, I'm skipping that basics of mass spec, but the way we ionize to get the mass spectrum is mass to charge ratio. So when we ionize such big proteins, because of multiple sites available of amino acids NH groups, it acquires charges, positive charge, right? Protons, it acquires all the protons in the in NH groups, and then it gets multiple charge, 50 times charge, etc. So 1,50,000 divided by 50, let's say, so it becomes into to that mass range. You get a complete wonderful mass charge envelope, and that can be deconvoluted and made to zero charge to see the accurate mass. So that's a possibility with this these machines, so the time of flights, quadrupole time of flights. So coming to some basics again, means while discussing that, what exactly are definitions being used with the time of flight. So first and foremost, basic thing is mass to charge. It is not specific to time of flight, but in any mass spec for that example. So mass to charge is basically the way we measure or the way we read out the spectrum from coming from the mass in the mass spec. Okay, so mass to charge is when a charge acquires when the mass acquires the charge during the process of ionization. It is called as mass to charge basically. So for a small molecule which acquires one charge, so mass is, let's say, 300, and you acquire one charge, and with the acquisition of one proton, it becomes 301. So it's singly charged, you can say it. Whereas when you have multiple charges, let's say if you have a mass of 201, for example, I'm just giving an example, 201, and it is doubly charged. So if I say 201 divided by 2, because charge is 2 and mass is 201, it becomes 100.5, right? So the moment it becomes 100.5, it will be visible as a 100.5 in the mass spectrum once we inject that mass, right? And if it acquires two charges. So in nature, we know that there is nothing called as half isotope. So if there is 0.5 difference, we understood that it is doubly charged. That's why it is giving 0.5. Similarly, if it is 0.3 difference, it is triply charged. 0.25 difference, quadruply charged, like that. So that's the way we interpret, and all this logic and that concept behind it is now completely inbuilt into the softwares to interpret for you. So you can do it manually, but there is a way which can be visible very quickly in the mass spectrum, in the software or informatics tools available along with these instruments. So mass to charge is basis. If you cannot ionize your molecule, any mass spec is for that matter. So it is as simple as that. So you must ionize your molecule to have the mass spectrum, any mass spectrum for that matter, time of flight, quadrupole, ion trap, anything for that matter. So you must have charge. You must be having a mechanism to ionize. If it is not ionizable, it cannot be seen in mass spec. Of course, there are other ways to ionize if in case in one way of ionization doesn't work. In the last slide, I can show you a couple of that. Orthogonal acceleration, of course, specific to Agilent, where orthogonal means 90 degree. You push the ions in the 90 degree. Maybe in the next slide I can show you. These two is important: parts per million and resolution. So I mentioned to you about mass accuracy and resolution. These are the two specific things which we look for quadrupole time of flight. So accuracy we measure in terms of parts per million, means error. Meaning if I inject a mass of, let's say, 500 into my time of flight, and the 500.0000, let's say, and if I get a spectrum of 500.0020, what it means? It made an error, isn't it? It has to be 500.0000, but it has made 500.0020. So it has made an error. So I must measure that error, how much the error is. So how it is done? So it made an error of 0.002 Dalton divided by what exactly we wanted is theoretical mass is 500.000 into 10 to the power 6 to make it into standard convention of parts per million. So it becomes 4 ppm. So you can imagine, like when we are making an error at third or fourth decimal digits, your accuracy is 4 ppm, and the type of technologies and the instruments which we are talking nowadays, including Agilent, what we have, we are talking less than 1 ppm errors, meaning we are talking about fourth, fifth decimal digits. So if error happens at that decimal digit, that is also able to measure it systematically. So that kind of information, why it is important, I'll show in next slide. You will realize that why it is important, that much of accuracy. The next is resolution. Resolution in general, like it's a standard, I would say, in English dictionary meaning is anything if you can resolve, means anything. What is if you are able to differentiate between two things? So in terms of mass spec, the capacity and or the capability of the instrument to see the difference between two consecutive ions. That is what is called as resolution. So just to give you an example and perspective to that, let's say if you have, and resolution is always defined as m by delta m. So m by delta, meaning if you have a mass of, again, let's say 500 Daltons, so your mass is 500, and when it forms, like when it is ionized, you could able to see. If you remember my first slide, I told you here it's a unit mass. Quadrupole is unit mass, and time of flight is high resolution, like high resolution mass. So unit mass resolution. Unit mass resolution means my mass spec is able to see the difference of 1 Dalton, meaning it can see only 499 or 501, not what is in between. It can only differentiate that. Whereas in this mass, it can see in between that. And why it is important? Because to get the complete fidelity of isotopes and even including the charge states. So if I have a 500 mass and my peak width, like the possibility of looking plus or minus is, let's say, 0.1, peak width at half median we calculate normally, FWHM. So it is 500 divided by 0.1. So I can see, my mass spec can see difference of 0.1 from the centroid of 500, let's say. So it becomes 5000 resolution. Okay, so if I have a capability to see 0.1 Dalton here and there, means I can see 499.9 and 500.1, it is 5000. Whereas the technologies which are available right now, they can give you even 50,000, 60,000 resolution, meaning you can imagine we are talking about peak shapes which are very, very thin, maybe third, fourth decimal digits. So that level of information we can get. That's why it is resolution is very, very high, and it's important for these instruments to have high resolution, because that gives you enough information and that can provide you accuracy, because as the resolution increases, your accuracy also increases. So transient is just, I can skip that. It's just a packet of ion which we push into the top. Maybe it's a more specific for Agilent terminology in that sense. So give you an just illustration of the quadrupole mass analysis. Till now you must have made some kind of imagination in your mind, but this is how it happens. So quadrupole, as I mentioned you, it's very specific selective. So you tell something, it will hear that only. So it will, you remember that term mass, it's a mass filter. So you say 609, it will filter anything else except 609. That's it. It is that specific. So that's why it is very, very sensitive also, because it will not allow even single ion of 609, because you told that to look for that. So it's as specific as that. Whereas in time of flight or QTOF, they are scanning all the time. and those ions are pushed into the time of flight tube, and the time of arrival is recorded. So I'll show you the next spectrum. So the difference between it is scanning spectrometer and it is full spectrum. So it has no bias of any other specific mass. You cannot filter anything. It is scanning all the time. It will give you full spectrum at all times with high resolution and has high mass accuracy. So what exactly it means, I told you already, the unit mass spectra versus high resolution. You can see the difference between just 1 Dalton here, whereas in this case, you can have a very, very sharp peaks and very, very well resolved. So there is no kind of merging of peaks, etc. You can separate all the isotopes very, very clearly. And because of that, you get in spectrum dynamic range. Even there are a couple of some more molecules merging together, co-eluting rather, I must say that it has the capacity to resolve them and make it separate in a way that you can identify that 609.2771 is different than 609.2798, let's say. So to that extent, it can differentiate and identify and give you the results in that form. And that is what is required from this instrument, because it gives you some information which is there, but unless you go for this kind of technologies, you can't be able to see that. So definition of resolution, I told you already. So peak width at half medium, you remember this is, if this is 500, M1 is 500, and the peak width is 0.1, meaning 499.9 and 500.1. So M1 divided by delta M is 0.1. so it becomes 5000. So why it is important resolution? If you can just remember my just last statement when I said that 200.201 is divided by 2, it becomes, so let's say this is 201 and this is, if you can see me in my video is on still, so 201 and 202 is the next isotope. So if it is become, that is singly charged, all right. When it becomes a doubly charged, it becomes 100.5. when it is triply charged, it's 0.3. When it is quadruply charged, 0.25. Imagine 50 times charge of monoclonal antibody. It is just in one peak itself. You can't see it unless you have a resolving power to resolve that decimal digits, 0.4, 5th or 6th decimal digit at that charge state. That's why it is important that unless you have resolution, you can't see in between that peak, and then you cannot establish the right charge state. And hence you cannot get an accurate mass. That's why resolution is important. Resolution is very, very critical for such applications, specifically when we say unknowns, because that is the thing which we can pose question to our instrument and technology, and we get a reliable answers coming out of it because of high resolution and mass accuracy. Another analogy is just in terms of mass accuracy. Like if you lose accuracy, if your vision is blurred, your resolving power is not correct, and that's why your accuracy is not right. You just see it as a just red car. But whereas when you resolve it properly, you get a very good clarity and very good mass accuracy. You can go into the finest details, like in this case, which car it is, which make it is, what type of tires, features, etc. So all those things is very simple analogy to explain you that resolution is very critical. My question is what type of car it is, but the answer would be, if you have a resolution and mass accuracy, which car it is. It will give you all the details also on that. So that's what is important, and with confidence. There cannot be anything else. It cannot be blue car. It is a red car. So that kind of information is coming out of from this kind of these technologies and instrumentations with confidence. So that is something, a very underlining statement I'm making all the time, and repeatedly I'm doing it with confidence. So time of flight as a theory, time of flight, as the name suggests, again, time of flight. So we are measuring a time taken by a mass to fly into the tube, and when it and then capture. So time of flight is directly proportional, I would say, is related to the mass of the ion, for example. So it's a kind of race. It's a simple kinetic energy equation, K is equal to half mv square. So it's kind of race where the start point is same. You push the ions, it will fly orthogonal acceleration, the 90 degree to the, and then it will come back and detect it. So it's as simple as that. To make it a very simple understanding for you, it's a race. So it's a race of some length, right? So this is the d, the distance, some distance. It will go and fly and come back. So heavier the mass, the more time it will take. To the tune of what? So 100.1234 will take some millimicrosecond more than 100.1233. So it is to that extent it can able to differentiate time of arrival, and hence it can able to measure that accurately and give you the information that 100 point. It is not just 100 now. The compound is not 100. There are two compounds of two different masses. So 100 can be 100.1234 or 100.1233. Both are altogether different compounds. And in nature, it is possible. It is a challenge, in fact, for small molecule situation and metabolites. If you would have worked, someone of you have worked on it, it's a challenge. It is becoming challenge that how to interpret results of, because the same mass number you will find multiple chemical compositions in the same mass. So unless you have such information, you cannot narrow down. You will get lost into another level of information. So you started with nowhere, you end up with nowhere again. So with this high resolution and accuracy, you can have that confidence. Okay, this can be only these components. That's it, or this chemical composition. So in general, how we do it, by far you could have sensed what exactly it is. So basically, you have an ion beam. So you make it in a common. So it's the race has started now. You see. We make it as a standard start with all the ions coming at a time, then push it. Now you see it gets resolved in the space and make it separated automatically based on their mass, and then the different time of arrivals is recorded. So that's how it gets resolved, and you get a resolving power as well as mass accuracy at a time. Another information which we talked about is mass accuracy, of course. Why it is critical now, I'll tell you that. So the title of the slide is a bit tricky in the sense like your chemistry teacher lied. Why so? Because hydrogen in general convention in day-to-day language we speak like hydrogen mass is 1, but actually it is not. It is 1.0079. And why it is important now? I need not to tell you now by this time that why it is important, because we are talking about third, fourth decimal digit, and the technology which I'll be using now in the QTOF. This is important information because our technology can able to differentiate and identify at that level. So that's why this information is important, and this information, since we know that this technology can give us this level of information, I will use it now. I will apply this information now. How we apply that? So in terms of mass error, of course, I told you, but just to give you another example, like it's called as ppm. It's very simple calculation. It's just a mathematical calculation where you have a measured mass and the calculated mass. So what is measured mass is the mass which is acquired, and calculated is theoretical. So let's say in this case it's a reserpine. The mass formula of the molecule we know already. So based on the chemical composition, we know what is the m plus h of that, or when it gets ionized m by z in singly charged, we know what is the calculated mass of it. Acquired mass is, let's say, this one. So divided by the theoretical mass multiplied by 10 to the power 6, you get ppm error of less than 1 ppm, let's say. Even if it is making error at third or fourth decimal digits, it's less than 1 ppm error. So we are very, very confident that it has to be reserpine. It cannot be anything else because it is having that much high accuracy. So we have seen that we take this advantage of this information coming out of TOF or QTOF in our favor, in the sense like we know mass accuracy is critical, and we have seen it. Let's say if in this example it is shown this example has been done in our R&D labs, and we could able to see that if your error or the measurement in error or the ppm errors are more, your possibility of generating formulas are also very high. Now you see, if your error is 0.1 Dalton, from the same different molecular weight formulas, you can generate close to 1,000 formulas. Whereas the moment you start reducing your errors, you start decreasing your errors or increasing your accuracy, your possibilities is getting reduced. So you injected some molecule which you do not know, and you get 1,000 answers for that. You will be lost again. Which one is correct? But if you have an accuracy and resolution, you will get only 2 or 3. Now you know from where you source that compound. You have some logic, you have some scientific information available from that, and you have some limited information. You can always correlate. Yeah, it can be this only because it cannot have chlorine, this, that, whatever. Conclusion you can make it. It becomes. You can define your next experiment. That's why I always make this statement. With this machine, you can define your next experiment confidently again. So what should I do from these 3 formulas now? You know that now. You have a fair idea that this molecule which I've injected, which I was not known to me, or plant metabolite or anything else, some novel compound I have injected, I got these 3-4 formulas. So you know which class of compound it can belong to, or what kind of chemical elements it has. All those information you have, and you can build your next experiment very, very confidently on this information. How we generate formulas now? What is the logic behind it? How it can say that it has these chemicals only, this elements only? How it can say that? It's a very simple logic actually. Now that's again accurate because of accurate mass, of course. But you see, water, if I put it into quadrupole, it gives us 18, mass of 18. Whereas when we put it into time of flight, it will give you 18.0105 because it has isotopic resolution, fidelity, and resolution. That's why it will give you a very, very high accuracy. That it is not just 18, it is 18.0105. Similarly, oxygen for a quadrupole it is 16, but for a QTOF it is 15.9949. So that's the difference. Whereas NH2 also is 16 for quadrupole, but NH2 is 16.01. So you see, that is the difference. quadrupole cannot distinguish whether it is oxygen or it is NH2 because it is considered both as 16. Whereas time of flight immediately tells that it has to be oxygen, it cannot be NH2 or otherwise, depending upon the mass, simple small 0.01 Dalton here and there. That's it. But it based on that, it can pinpoint that it has N and H and 2 hydrogen, and then it has to be have that much information. And similarly for others also. Nitrogen or CH2, all other many other things. So just to give you an example of that, just because the way we are getting information more accurately and with high resolution and much more information beyond decimal points, we take that advantage of that information in our favor because of the knowledge we already have on chemistry and elemental composition and the details about that, the periodic table rather. So we take that advantage and use it in our favor because of the information we are getting from such instruments. And hence you can create a very limited. So if you have a high mass accuracy and resolution instrument like TOF or QTOF or FT instruments, you can limit your identification possibilities. Whereas in single unit mass resolution, you will get the ones which probably might be correct, but there are many others. You get lost ultimately. Okay, which one to choose from? So you started with nowhere, you end up nowhere. You started with nowhere, you end up somewhere where you can lead to next experiment with much more systematically and with much more scientific information available to you to justify your statement that why this, why not that. So that's very important. So as an application, QTOF can be used, varied application rather, it can be used in any kind of application. Specifically with this much information which I shared till now, you would know very clearly that it is a very good robust tool for something which is unknown characterization, because it can give you much more information for that. So any kind of unknown characterization, be it impurity profiling or metabolomics, proteomics discovery, metabolomics discovery, proteomics, where you want to discover something, biomarker identification, all those things, even lipidomics, any kind of omics for that matter, it can perform very well, because when you start such experiments, you have very limited information, except the fact that you know that what is the basis of this experiment. That's it. Disease versus control or treated versus healthy, something like that. That's much information you have. But what exactly happening, even including the drug development, let's say pharmaceutical companies, they synthesize some drug, but they do have no idea, okay, what kind of impurities it might create, either in process related or maybe in self product related. Product might be degrading itself. You have no idea, because that is not something which you as a scheme of your design for experiment. When you synthesize something, it happens because of some other reasons which you might not know at that time. So it is unknown information for you, but you want to know what exactly is happening. So all those information can be very well taken care by such machines like time of flight or QTOF, where you can have a possibility of MS fragmentation and identify that. So for life science application, you can use it very well, even for applied market, not limited to life science, food safety, pesticides, you know that already. It's becoming a big challenge everywhere, and with this raising concern of health and safety of what we are eating every day for boost immunity and other things. So now with this COVID situation, that becomes much more highlight, in fact, environmental as water analysis as well as food safety. So that also very important. You can screen multiple pesticides, antibodies or antibiotics or anything else which is irrelevant and which is creating trouble to you. You can screen it very fast. You remember that statement in my second or third slide? It has high scan speeds. So quadrupole time of flight can give you high scan speeds. And that's why you can, in the short period of time, you can scan and screen larger amount of information at a time. So it can use by pesticides, water analysis, wastewater analysis, many other things can be done. Even organometallic and polymers also it can be used very comfortably in applied market area. So very briefly, quickly, I'll just explain you how we handle the situations in terms of, let's say, metabolomics. Not one part is you acquire the data. Another part, very important, is like you have enormous data now, because as I told you, it has no bias of its own. It scans everything and give you the data. So you have enormous data. How to pick and choose what is relevant for me? So in terms of metabolomics, I will explain you maybe a brief, and then I'll get you one example also. So you prepare a sample, you analyze the data. Basically, you acquire the data in high accurate mass and resolution. Because of that, you get high isotopic fidelity as well as dynamic range and sensitivity. Once you have all the information, you have to get into interpretation. So you can have multiple ways of doing it, untargeted as well as pathway directed, meaning now you remember you have a quadrupole also in the QTOF. So we can take advantage of quadrupole. You can tell that in the pathway of, let's say, any pathway which you are targeting in your metabolomic study, you can tell that look only for these 10 compounds which are available. I am interested only in that. What else is happening in other pathway, I don't know, because in this study, I know that this much only I want to monitor. So that's an advantage of QTOF, because you have a quadrupole, you can do that. You can have a hypothesis driven approach where you say the quadrupole, like look for only this 1020, forget about another 1000 what is coming along with that. And quadrupole, because of its the way it works as a mass filter, it will filter only those and fragment that in the collision cell and then accurately measure the mass as well as MSMS of those 10, 20, 50, 100 whatever compounds which you are telling it to scan and screen. So that's why that's how it can be possible as a hypothesis driven or untargeted, meaning in tandem. So quadrupole and time of flight will work in tandem. It will screen first everything. TROF will tell that okay, this 10 in this scan, this 10 is important based on the way you define abundance, charge state, etc. It will tell to the quadrupole that in the next scan, which is coming in millimicroseconds, scan only these 10, fragment that. So you have a scan of all thousands. Then MSMS of this 10, which is filtered now, stitched together, and you get MS and MSMS information as a readout as a user. So that's the way it works in just fraction of seconds. So that's how compatible the smart cards are now to capture the information in tandem. So the basic workflow would be like you acquire the data in any kind of TOF or the instrumentation. Then you have to find out the features or find out the compounds, feature finding algorithms. Then you have to align and make a statistics, identify them using either database or anything like that, accurate mass database, and then take it to the pathways. So you can map those accurate information based on the annotations you get for identification of Cas number, KEGG, or anything, Swiss Pro ID or whatever it is. And then you can take it into pathway and see that, okay, what kind of metabolites are identified and how it can be mapped onto the pathway and what impact it can pose to those pathways. So data mining is critical as well as I would say rigorous also, because enormous data, as I told you, because multiple runs, so many of information. So there are tools available. So no need to worry. The point here is to tell you that informatics tools are available who can bin and align multiple runs together and then extract the information out of it. And you can always have the screening for different types of reproducibility. You can include your elements or compounds into that, or you can remove based on the information you are having at that point of time. The other important thing with respect to Agilent, I can mention you, but it's not just limited to Agilent, but because you have the accurate mass information at hand, you can use that information to identify. How you identify now? With us, we have databases and library which are curated, meaning you have already been built list of more than 2 lakh libraries now. In fact, database now with all the metabolites, dipeptides, and lipids, etc. So you have a accurate mass information. You have a database. It matches and pulls out based on the isotopic fidelity, as I told you, and I will show you in one example also next slides. And it will retrieve the data from there. Okay, this formula and this compound makes sense for this isotopic fidelity, and hence your raw data information which has only mass accuracy at this point of time, with this kind of possibility of identification using databases and libraries, you can match that information to identification. Now it can be identified that this is glucose only, it cannot be anything else, or this is reserpine, or this is this XYZ, whatever the kind of analysis which we try to do. So it goes to that level. And just to confirm that, you can again trigger an MSMS and you can match it with library also. Or maybe there are other ways which I will briefly explain you in this. So there are different libraries available, in fact, with Agilent, including metabolomics, ligands, everything, toxins. So that was the first part of my talk. Now I'll explain you with whatever I spoke till now with one very brief and good example, which I did it actually myself in our lab in Bangalore. So it was an identification and characterization of, the situation was I had one sample wherein I did not knew it was just a plant extract. I did not knew what type of analyte is there in that one. We need to identify that. So it was absolutely unknown situation. So how we use this machine. So different workflows are there. So what exactly we did is we acquire the data again in high resolution mass spec, and then we identify what are the topmost masses are available in that sample. What are the best top 5, let's say 5 peaks which we could see in the PIC, and what are those masses. So that's why we extracted that information using molecular feature extract. Of course, it's a algorithm, but point here is we could able to pick up those 5-6 masses, abundant masses in the sample, while getting rid of background and other things. That's how we did it. That's why it is also called as data mining. You are mining the data while getting rid of the other component which is not useful. Then what we did is we tried to get that into database search, generate formulas, and then match the scores and other things. So that's how we did it. So in molecular feature extraction, meaning again I told you, like it will extract based on isotopic pattern, adducts, everything. It will take care of it, and it will remove the backgrounds. And then we selected with the Metlin database. So we have a mass and we have a database. We try to see like, okay, what exactly information it gives us back through this. So now you see the mass was 244.0735. Okay, and the M by Z was of course 245 because M plus H. So when we identify when we subjected this isotopic fidelity, you see you get excellent isotopic fidelity of this mass now because of high resolution, and hence very good mass accuracy. So when we subject this information of 245.080 into the database, the identification hit came back is Virone acid. Okay, with Cas ID, everything information, formula, all those things comes up with the accuracy of less than 0.5 ppm. It's a 0.2 ppm rather. So it's very good accuracy. It's very minimal error. So we are sure about this one. So it is at just MS level. We have not even done any MS and everything. So we got the hit. So we started with nowhere. Now we got a hit. Okay, this can be the one which is possible, apart from many other hits which we get. So as I told you. Okay, then what next? To confirm that, okay, this is really Virone acid or not, what we did is we triggered MSMS now. We triggered MSMS and try to see whether it is available in our library. If yes, fine. If not, then look for whether this MSMS pattern is available in ChemSpider or any other possibilities are there, where it can have some kind of putative hits based on the fragments which we are getting from this molecule. Okay. So this is the next level of confirmation, and that is happening just because we are using QTOF, meaning tandem MSMS, meaning we have a possibility to do an MSMS fragmentation in this type of tandem MSMS analyzer, where you have quadrupole and time of flight combined in space with the possibility of MSMS, of collision-induced dissociation in this case. So this is an MSMS. So we fragmented this 243 point this mass into 3 different collision energies, 10, 20, and 40 collision energies, and then we subjected to another software tool. Of course, I can skip this part, but there is a tool which is a kind of liaison between MSMS information and a ChemSpider. So incidentally, I can just to give you a background about this story. This Virone acid, we do not have any MSMS library of our own in Agilent, as I told you, like PCDL. We have only MS information of that. We do not have MSMS fragmentation. So we could not able to, even if we could able to have a experimental MSMS, we could not match it with theoretical MSMS from our library. So what next we did is we tried to match it with something which is available in ChemSpider or any PubChem, any kind of database which is available online. So this tool is helpful, where we get this information and try to explore in these such platforms. using that information of MSM, accurate mass MSMS. And you'll be surprised to see that the hits coming out from the MSMS pattern of that is again exactly same iron acid from KIMS pattern. So it gives us a confidence that what we identify using just MS information and based on isotopic fidelity, it is the same molecule. So we started with nowhere and we end up with confidently saying that this peak and this sample contains iron acid. So it becomes such a fantastic story with confidence, and with such a data, no questions asked, where you have MSMS information, all the real-time examples, spectra available, how you interpret data with available, everything is available. That's it, means there is no questions asked further. So such a wonderful MSMS pattern we could able to identify here with MS and MSMS, and we could able to annotate in fact each individual fragment with what kind of structure it has using this specific tools and accurate mass MSMS information coming out of QTOF. So that is the power of quadrupole time of flight type of instruments, where you get accuracy, mass resolution at the same time for MS as well as fragments, and that gives give you the confidence of your analysis. So you can see that excellent isotopic fidelity of this, and as you see, like even the isotopes are quite well acquired, and they are quite accurate enough to help the identification, overall identification in terms of scoring. So, and as I mentioned you already, it gives you a very good isotopic fidelity or isotopic ratio. You can see like at least 3 or 4 decimal order of fidelity is there at that level of low mass of 245 M/Z, and that information is quite important, or I would say useful, to take it for further identification in terms of database search or even fragmentation, of course. So just to summarize finally, so this QTOF, as I mentioned here, this was just one example, very brief one rather, I would say. There's a complete report was there for more than 20-25 pages. I just tried to summarize few of the key highlights of that particular specific study which we did it here. But it is not just limited to what I talked today. So it can be applied in any kind of scenario where you find it something which is not known to you. 2-3 things, of course, qualifying questions. The compounds must ionize, definitely, of course, yes. Otherwise, you can't do it. It should be clear solution, of course, because it should not block. It should be in a buffers which can be ionizable, which doesn't block the ionization, because it has to be volatile rather, I must say, in the simple terms. If 2, 3, 4 types of situation, if you handle properly, and appropriate separation using LC platform as a front end to this mass spectrometers, I think all kind of challenges which are written here, all kind of applications can be comfortably done. We have done it in our own experiences, all of them, almost all of them, including metabolomics, proteomics, drug discovery, impurities, characterization of biopharma. Of course, biopharma, in fact, it's my favorite subject here. I'm doing every day almost these applications in the same instruments. Even food safety, we discussed about it, forensics toxicology, environmental screening, chemical energy, everything can be done using these applications. In fact, the SAFE has already one instrument from Agilent, so I'm sure that they are using almost all of them already. So if I summarize finally the time of flight system, you get high resolution, accurate mass and isotopic fidelity, as well as pattern, reproducible sensitivity. That's very, very critical. You must reproduce what you get. It should not be one hit wonder and suddenly you get iron acid, next time you get something else. It cannot be happen like that, and it cannot be acceptable also. So it has to be reproducible. It has to be reproducible all the time when you run it. So that's possible with such instrumentations, and excellent dynamic range, and of course speed of analysis, which we can do. So this high resolution and mass accuracy is independent of acquisition speed. That's a key characteristic of a time of flight. Even if you change your scan speeds, etc., it won't affect to that. So that's an advantage. Even if you can run fast, you don't lose your resolution. That's important point here in time of flight. So there are different modes of acquisition, as briefly I mentioned during my presentation while giving you some examples. You can scan it. You can just use the TOF mode. Because you have a quadrupole, you can target it. You remember that you can focus only on a couple of masses, you can tell quadrupole to look for that targeted MSMS, fragment that and then do it. Then there is another version called auto MSMS, also called as data dependent acquisition, meaning depending upon the scan, time of flight will tell to the top quadrupole that which to be isolated and then fragmented. So it is intent data dependent. Depending upon the data, it will trigger MSMS, otherwise not. And this is data directed, means you are directing what to be targeted. And there is another mode called data independent, or also called as all ions, meaning quadrupole will not work as quadrupole. It will allow all the ions to pass. Collision cell is always fragmenting. It's all ions at all time. Every ion will be fragmented and then acquire the data. And then there is a ways to interpret that data also. It gives us better sensitivity, and you can do a simultaneous quantification and quantification both. So I mentioned briefly in my one of my earlier slides that it must ionize. If you can't ionize your molecule, it is the mass spec is blind. To handle that situation, sometimes some situation comes up that where a standard ionization or ESI, electrospray ionization, doesn't work for some molecules, like nonpolar or maybe some kind of like aromatics or many other things. So heterocyclic compounds. Then there are various ways to ionize them. So there are like they can be. If it is not going our way, we'll try to force something to make it ionized using either chemical ionization, atmospheric pressure chemical ionization, or photo ionization, etc. All those things can be applied to that. So there are different ways to ionize that. The various ionization sources are available now, where you can handle such situation, some odd situation, which if it comes to your way, there is a solution which is possible now to handle such situations. In fact, for a larger screening, there is a tool called multimode, meaning you can ionize both ASI and APCI simultaneously. So specifically in metabolites or metabolomics workflows, where you don't know, there are maybe some metabolites which may be polar, which may be non-polar, all kinds of things will be there. So this situation can handle that, where you can screen both type of compounds at a time. So you need not to run multiple runs to do that. And in fact, you can scale down your analytical scale to nanoscale using nanosource also, of course. So those possibilities, just to give you an idea about it, it's not just about what we have, but it's as a technology, it's available now. So you can choose and use based on the information you have already with your sample. So with this, I think I just exceeded 5 minutes maybe, but it's okay, I feel. So with this, I'm done with my talk today, and maybe I'm open for any questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ashish Pargankar. Let's begin the today's question and answer round. So the first question is by Raghu. Is QTOF LCMS accuracy applicable for molecular weights of phosphorylated intact proteins?
Yes, of course, because it's possible. Only thing like phosphorylated proteins means you know already that it is modified with the phosphorylation group 79, I think 79 Dalton. So that can be very well applied. In fact, there are algorithms which can modify that protein, so you can match that. If you have a sequence, let's say you are asking about specifically protein, that's why I'm interpreting in that way. If you have a sequence of a protein and you have a mass, intact mass, you can always deconvolute and suggest predicted modification of phosphorylation, let's say, with addition of 79 Dalton, and then it can be matched. Of course, yes. So this same accurate mass can be very well comfortably identify and match the phosphorylation, and not limited to phosphorylation, any PTM for that matter, oxidation, deamidation, anything else also.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the next question is by Dhruva Panchal. How does the sample preparation for targeted and untargeted molecules differ?
Okay, so sample preparation, I believe that it is for metabolomics, if I'm not wrong. But just to answer your question, even if it is targeted or non-targeted, means it depends. Like if it is, when you are asking targeted, means it's a quite a vast question, I would say, because in which direction I should answer. So let me answer in both ways. So in quantification, let's say targeted, where you are very specific about some of the analytes which you are looking for in the sample. So your sample strategy might change a bit, where you get rid of some things while using some kind of sample preparation techniques like SPE or protein, maybe I would say CADA filters or anything, depending upon the type of molecule, because you want to retain something which you are looking for, you already know. So that is why it is called as targeted, right? You already know. So you know what is the chemistry of that molecule which you are looking for, and you know what is the background. So you can apply various strategies now available. A lot of sample preparation strategies are available to remove those things. Whereas in untargeted, it becomes tricky because you cannot choose or take any kind of situation where you lose your some of the important information while preparing your samples. So in that way, sample preparation in that way is not that rigorous in non-targeted situation or a screening situation, right? But it is important for us to get rid of something which is, let's say, it is like serum or plasma, some kind of samples, and we know that there are albumins and many other proteins are abundant in that one. So if I inject that sample and my time of flight gives me answer that you have got albumin, so that's no new information. I know that already, right? So those things we can avoid, and that way you can prepare samples. So to get rid of something which is most abundant, and you target something which is of your interest, and normally they are typically in less abundant when you talk about biomarker or anything else. But yes, sample preparation is a critical step, I would say. Any mass spec can be blinded if you have no relevant prepared sample, because then it will create another kind of situation and problems to you while scouting your data of interest.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the other question is by the same one, Durva Panchal. For any biological sample, is it important to run the sample both in positive as well as negative mode?
Yes, it depends. Like if it is metabolites, yes, preferably yes, absolutely, because in fact, that is the kind of strategy we also apply all the time, because we never know. Like few of the metabolites can be acidic or maybe basic, depending upon that, it will ionize, and it's always better to run in both modes for sure. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the another interesting question is by Siva Ranjani from ICER. Can we take the identity of the compounds as final after searching our QTOF mass spectrum against any library which shows minimum error? Any open source software is available to do this kind of work?
Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, to buy when you have identification, let's say MS level identification with good mass accuracy, that is good enough, but that is not the complete information for sure. Of course, you must confirm it on our next level using MSMS. You can fragment that and correlate their fragments also to the same mass or the same identity. That is the next level. That gives another level of confidence that it has to be the same, the way I showed you, right? The Veron acid, something like that, where you are very sure about, because it's not just one mass now. You are looking at the fragments also, and you are like a complete bottom-up approach where you are collating all the information of MSMS and do that one. And then finally, of course, you see, MS can always be complemented with any other final identification technique. Like, and finally, once you know the elemental composition, you can use any other complementary technique, NMR or any other analyzers, where you can conclude the same information from various complementary techniques to confirm that. But yes, to start with and to get you to that level to confirm something from other complementary technique, this information is good enough.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the next question is by the same user. How to integrate the M by Z data obtained from positive ESI and negative ESI mode of ionization of the same sample?
Okay, so I'm not sure, because it's all about software driven, means I'm not sure which, because uh, ultimately they are two different ionization mode, but in terms of mass, it is in terms of information, it is giving you the M by Z only, right? It's either it is if it is mass is 200, it will give 201 for positive and 199 for negative, but ultimately it is the same information in different modes. So but there are ways, I'm not sure, because of course one way is you sit and do manually. Like this is masses which I'm getting in positive ionization mode, create an Excel, and negative ionization mode, and then scout. But no need to do that nowadays. I'm not sure how you did it, but like for example in Agilent, we can collate it in one format in mass profile professional, something like that, and together we can export all the information at a time. Or even in not necessarily the statistics analysis. Even you can create a list of masses of both type of samples at once and then identify and then combine it together. That's possible. I think so. It should be possible in every sort because this is something very basic information which we can obtain.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, the last question for metal complex and halogen type of samples, which ionization source can be used?
Yeah, so we have our own experience. So organometallics, we run some of the samples. So what we have seen, like normally electrospray ionization, we used it in fact in positive ionization mode also, because they are different metal complexes. So everyone might behave differently. I don't know, but in general, in my experience, what I can say you that whatever we have done for various organometallics, including some kind of rhenium and other metals, also palladium, also, which came out really nice in terms of isotopic fidelity, and we could able to generate formulas exact to the to the matching of the compounds, elemental composition, using electrospray ionization, positive ionization mode.
Okay, thank you, sir. We are done with the question and answer section round. So we are really grateful, sir, for answering the questions. On behalf of SAP CRNTS, I would like to thank Dr. Ashish Pargankar for interesting talk on LC-QTOF technology and its applications in metabolomics. I would like to thank our head Professor Anil Kotantharal and our IT team member Mrs. Nidhi Goyal and Mr. Jagdeep Singh for their continued support in this webinar series. And last but not the least, I thank all the participants for attending this webinar and making this event successful. A link for feedback form is shared in the question and answer section. Please do fill the form. Your valuable inputs are really important to us. The upcoming talk is on atomic scale characterization of materials in 3D, an introduction to atom probe tomography, which is headed over by Dr. Deodatta Shinde, and the registration link for it is now open on our website. I request you all to join us for our next talk. Once again, thank you all for making the webinar successful. Stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you so much.